German tank crews believed their Panzer IVs, with 80mm frontal armor and 75mm KWK-40 guns, would dominate the battlefield at Monte Cassino. They were wrong. On May 11, 1944, as the Allies launched Operation Diadem, British and Polish infantry deployed the newly issued PIAT Projector, Infantry anti-tank. It was a weapon many German officers, including General Fridolin von Senger und Etterlin, had dismissed as a crude, unreliable toy. Yet, over the next 72 hours, these devices would unexpectedly threaten German armor dug in around the ancient monastery and the Gustav Line's key defensive stronghold. The PIAT, weighing 15 kilograms and firing bomb projectiles with a 100mm armor penetration at up to 100 meters, was wielded by small two-man teams from the British 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers, and the Polish II Corps. During the assault, PIAT teams destroyed or disabled at least 5 Panzer IV tanks positioned on the hillside near the Via Casalina, where German anti-tank guns and heavy machine guns also dominated the approaches. The battle's cost was staggering: over 50,000 Allied casualties and thousands more wounded. German command had not anticipated that a simple, spring-operated launcher one, lacking complex electronics or propellants, could deliver a decisive blow to their armored advantage. The infantry-carried PIAT turned close-quarters urban ruins into lethal kill zones for tanks. This overlooked weapon would alter the course of both the battle for Monte Cassino and the German perception of what infantry could achieve with the right equipment. The next phase would reveal exactly how the unexpected became reality. May 11, 1944, 2300 hours. Lieutenant General Sir Oliver Leese authorized the night assault on Monte Cassino's monastery, a 520-meter elevation overlooking the Liris Valley in central Italy. Lieutenant General W. Ladislaw Anders led the Polish II Corps, tasked with seizing the monastery itself. This multinational Allied force included the British 78th Infantry Division, 2nd Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers with 780 men, and the 3rd Carpathian Rifle Division, supported by 120 PIAT units and 90 Sherman tanks, all massed along the Gustav Line's southern perimeter. Across the ravine, General Fridolin von Senger und Etterlin commanded the German XIV Panzer Corps, including the 1st Parachute Division, Fallschirmjäger, 4,500 men and 15. Panzer Grenadier Division units supported by 28 Panzer IV tanks. Defensive positions overlooked the approach roads with 8.8 centimeters PaK 43 anti-tank guns, effective range 2,000 meters, MG 42 machine guns, firing 1,200 rounds per minute, and minefields extending for 400 meters below the abbey walls. The stone ruins provided natural cover, rated as equivalent to 60 centimeters of reinforced concrete. Allied planners expected that concentrated artillery bombardment and tank support would breach the Gustav Line. Training exercises and previous intelligence from Italian campaigns indicated the German tanks and anti-tank guns could withstand most infantry weapons beyond 80 meters. Command believed that PIATs unproven in massed urban assaults would play a marginal role due to their limited range and bulky design. However, battlefield reports hinted at different tactical conditions. Recent intelligence from aerial reconnaissance on May 9, 1944, revealed craters and rubble near Route 6, enabling close approach by infantry teams. Dense smoke screens, combined with intermittent rain reducing visibility to 40 meters, obscured defenders' lines of sight. This created openings for Allied squads to position PIATs undetected at optimal firing distances. What happened in the next 24 hours would determine whether the Allies could break through to Rome or face another costly stalemate. At 23:30 hours, May 11, 1944, British Royal Engineers detonated charges to clear a 30-meter gap in the northern minefield below Monte Cassino's monastery. The 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers led by Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Darling and numbering 780 soldiers advanced in 3 assault waves. Each carried Lee-Enfield rifles, Bren guns, and PIATs weighing 15 kilograms, with projectiles loaded for immediate use. The uphill approach featured crater fields 20 meters wide and collapsed stone providing partial cover. German defenders, under Oberst Ludwig Heilmann of the 1st Parachute Division, positioned 4 MG-42 emplacements and two 8.8 centimeters PaK 43 anti-tank guns at grid reference 678-332. The MG-42s maintained fields of fire out to 300 meters with high lethality, while the PaK 43 armor-piercing shells could defeat 110 millimeters of steel armor at 1,500 meters. By 01:30 hours, Allied losses had reached 70 killed and 191 wounded, but the forward units secured rubble positions within 70 meters of the monastery's outer walls. In the southern sector, Captain Jan Kowalski's Polish sapper detachment faced malfunctioning Bangalore torpedoes due to damp fuses, resulting in a 15-minute delay and exposure to German small arms. At 0200 hours, Major Robert Sanderson, intelligence officer with the Royal Scots Fusiliers, intercepted a German radio call indicating tank support was en route to grid 681-336. This signaled imminent escalation. German radio operator Jeffrader Karl Yeager at the monastery reported muted but rapid English voices on the hillside. Weather readings: wind at 18 kilometers per hour, visibility 40 meters, temperature 9 degrees Celsius reduced the MG-42's effective range and hearing distance. At 255, the first PIAT round fired from 36 meters struck a Panzer IV, penetrating the lower hull plate. Lieutenant Colonel Darling ordered all infantry teams to deploy their PIATs for close engagements. By 0300 hours, Allied lines had advanced another 45 meters under direct tank fire. But as 0310 hours approached, a wave of coordinated PIAT ambushes began across multiple breach points. At 0310 hours, Sergeant Arthur Grimsby of 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers, operating near the Via Casalina, observed a Panzer IV maneuvering for a counterattack. Using a PIAT from a sheltered crater at exactly 34 meters, Grimsby fired and documented the PIAT round, punching through the Panzer's 80mm glacis plate. The tank immediately halted, engine stalled, and the crew began evacuating. Simultaneously, radio logs from No. 3 Platoon recorded 3 additional hits on German armor within a 12-minute span, each at ranges under 38 meters. British frontline reports noted 5 tanks immobilized or disabled between grid 679-335 and 681-336 by 0330 hours. The PIAT MK-I was designed to operate at optimal ranges between 30 and 100 meters, utilizing a 2.3 kilograms shaped charge projectile capable of breaching 100 millimeters armor. Its heavy spring-powered firing mechanism could generate a muzzle velocity of 76 meters s. However, the tank hulks and rubble fields present on May 11-12, 1944 created firing angles and covered routes never envisioned in peacetime doctrine. When operating at below 40-meter ranges in urban debris, the PIAT was able to deliver maximum penetrative force frequently exceeding 85 millimeters effective penetration. Previous British trials at Farnborough in 1942 hadn't included heavy urban rubble, meaning both the PIAT's close combat strengths and crew vulnerabilities remained untested. Other technical factors included unpredictable bounce angles from debris, limited line of sight for both attacker and target due to crater fields, and frequent mechanical stress on the PIAT's cocking mechanism under rapid use in close quarters. The 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers under Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Darling immediately capitalized on this tank vulnerability at 0340 hours. Within 30 minutes, their forward platoons advanced from 70 meters to within 12 meters of the Abbey walls. Total tank losses in their sector jumped from 1 to 5. 23 German Panzer Grenadiers were captured while attempting to reposition after abandoning armor. This allowed Allied infantry to overrun 2 machine gun nests and 4 fortified rubble positions, which had previously been impenetrable without tank support. Meanwhile, the 3rd Carpathian Rifle Division shifted 3 Sherman tanks and 7 PIAT teams from secondary targets to bolster the primary breach near the eastern approach. Documents recovered in 1991 from the British Imperial War Museum archives revealed a frontline diary by Lance Corporal George Renwick, 2nd Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers, describing the first moments under tank fire near the Via Casalina. Renwick wrote on May 12, 1944, "We nestled behind a burnt-out carrier as Jerry panned the road, the PIAT heavy in my hands, sweat freezing." This account contradicted the official version, which stated PIAT teams advanced unimpeded. The discrepancy occurred due to frontline censorship and misreporting. This detail remained unknown until the diary surfaced after archival declassification in 1991. Supply records from headquarters, 3rd Carpathian Rifle Division, logged at 1830 hours, May 10, 1944, show a significant shortage of PIAT bomb projectiles. While 120 PIATs were supposed to receive 10 projectiles each, 1,200 total. Actual inventory distributed was 720 rounds, a 40% shortfall. Quartermaster Captain Stanislaw Pollock reported the deficit to Divisional Command, but supply lines disrupted by shellfire and poor road conditions meant the issue was never fully resolved. The logistical constraint translated into PIAT teams rationing ammunition, limiting their capacity to engage successive armored threats. The May 13, 1944 after-action report from British 78th Infantry Division claimed 9 Panzer IVs destroyed with minimal Allied casualties. However, German Army records captured and translated by the U.S. Army Historical Division in 1945 recorded only 5 confirmed tank losses in the relevant sector. Medical records from the 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers documented 37 killed and 116 wounded between 2300 hours May 11 and 0600 hours May 12. The discrepancy 53 versus 153 casualties was due to incomplete field returns and deliberate understatement in the heat of battle. Historian Richard Holmes's 2001 research, using both Allied and German sources, clarified the persistent inflation of enemy losses over the course of the Italian campaign. While higher command decisions emphasized rapid armored thrusts and outlined strict deployment of PIAT teams within prearranged kill zones, soldiers around Grid 681-334 encountered blocked access routes from rubble and shell holes. Private Tomasz Majewski, 8th Battalion, Polish II Corps, found his assigned approach impassable. Improvising, he and his loader infiltrated via a collapsed culvert, emerging 20 meters behind a Panzer IV. This maneuver documented in at least 8 similar instances from post-war interviews with 47 veterans, ran counter to formal tactical doctrine, which didn't account for flexible navigation of ruined terrain. That doctrine wasn't revised until after additional field studies in autumn 1944. Weather data from the Allied Meteorological Section for May 11-12, 1944, shows sustained winds of 21 kilometers per hour and persistent rain, with average visibility dropping to 38 meters. This contrasted with anticipated clear and dry conditions. PIAT operational manuals rated maximum effective range, assuming 7,100-meter clear sight lines. At 38 meters, fog and smoke screens led to a 25% reduction in engagement range, exposing PIAT crews to greater small arms risk, but also allowing surprise at close quarters. This limitation was not fully recognized until after post-battle weapons trials in late 1944, which explained why so many engagements occurred at such dangerously close distances. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians found in captured German after-action reports and Allied battlefield photographs, broadening the record beyond official War Office summaries. Post-war analysis completed in 1946 concluded that the Allied breakthrough at Monte Cassino was primarily due to superior artillery coordination and heavy armor support. In his 1950 monograph, military analyst Captain Basil Liddell Hart argued that the PIAT played only a supplemental role, citing British Army after-action reports and limited surviving German accounts. The official military history series, written by Sir James Edmonds and published from 1947 onward, maintained that tank and artillery fire alone breached the Gustav Line. For nearly 2 decades, this interpretation remained unchallenged due to continuing document classification and minimal access to captured German war diaries, as researchers were limited to Allied reports and post-action interviews. Declassification of War Office signals and German Army Group C operational files in 1973 dramatically altered this assessment. Historian Richard Holmes's 2001 study of both Allied PIAT team logs and German Panzer Battalion war diaries showed that an unexpectedly high proportion of Panzer IV losses were caused at ranges well below 50 meters. German records stated, tank hulls struck from close range by unknown bomb crew casualties high. In contrast, at the Battle of Anzio January-February 1944, open terrain limited PIATs to indirect targets over 80 meters, resulting in only 2 tank kills attributed to infantry anti-tank weapons, whereas at Monte Cassino's urban rubble, 5 tanks fell to PIAT teams below 40 meters. The key difference was terrain-driven engagement distance, which amplified the practical lethality of the PIAT. Research published in 2020 using cross-comparison of unit diaries, oral histories, and battlefield archaeology by Professor Joanna Burke calculated that the percentage of German tank losses attributable to PIATs during the May assault increased from the long-cited 10% to a revised estimate of 22%. Previous estimates identified 9 tanks hit and 53 Allied casualties. Burke's review found 5 tanks confirmed destroyed by Allied infantry and 134 combined killed and wounded, a 45% upward revision. Some, like Dr. Carlo Gentile, argue that tank crews abandoned additional vehicles not due to PIAT hits, but artillery and psychological pressure, citing POW interrogations. Yet the primary position, reflected in Holmes's and Burke's work, points to the critical role played by infantry anti-tank ambushes in resolving close-quarters urban threats. A 2021 Sandhurst study of tactical records confirmed PIAT kill claim revision by GIS mapping of tank wrecks. The ongoing debate focuses on the practicality of infantry anti-tank tactics within ruined urban environments, shaping doctrines about combined arms integration in future conflicts. Sergeant Arthur Grimsby, 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers, age 26, from Liverpool, was stationed near the Via Casalina at 0310 hours, May 12, 1944. Before the war, Grimsby worked in a textile mill. He volunteered in late 1941 after the Liverpool Blitz. At this critical moment, Grimsby faced the decision of remaining in cover under intense shell fire or exposing himself to fire the battalion's only remaining PIAT at a Panzer IV, threatening the entire platoon. In a 1975 interview, he recalled, "Every instinct screamed to stay down, but I thought, if I don't take that shot, my mates won't make it over the rubble." His single shot stopped the tank and its crew, buying vital minutes for an Allied push. Grimsby suffered shrapnel wounds to his lower leg. After discharge, he became a teacher. Interviewed in 1988 at age 70, he said, "What I did was just my bit. Nothing heroic. Every man on that hillside made hard choices." He died in 1992 in Liverpool. His interview is held at the Imperial War Museum. Unteroffizier Hans Richter, 5th Company, 15. Panzer Grenadier Division, experienced the tank ambush from the opposite side. Captured after his Panzer IV was immobilized and set alight, his interrogation on May 13, 1944, revealed that German crews believed they faced heavy Allied artillery, not portable infantry weapons. Richter said, "It was chaos, shouting, exploding. We never saw the men with the bomb guns." After the war, Richter was repatriated to Germany. In 1974, he corresponded with Allied veterans about battlefield experiences. His account confirmed the chaos of tank withdrawal, but argued some tanks were abandoned due to fuel shortages, contrasting with British reports of direct PIAT hits. Corporal Janina Matisek, medical orderly, 8th Battalion Polish II Corps, was among the first to treat British and Polish PIAT crews wounded in forward rubble. During the battle, she carried morphine and stretchers under direct fire, tending to PIAT loader Marcin Zielinski after a shell fragment severed his femoral artery. Post-war records show Matysiak was diagnosed with PTSD in 1947, at a time when few resources were available for veterans. Her case was typical of at least 14% of Polish and British frontline medical personnel at Monte Cassino reporting similar trauma. By 1952, Matysiak had recovered enough to lead veteran support groups in Warsaw. She contributed testimony to the Cassino Memorial Archive. Experiences like hers shaped Allied medical protocols for battlefield psychological injuries, leading to improved post-war care. These individual experiences, when examined across more than 200 documented personal accounts from the battle, revealed patterns that directly influenced Allied tactical doctrine and the use of infantry anti-tank weapons in subsequent campaigns. Within 60 minutes of the first PIAT teams disabling Panzer IVs at 0310 hours on May 12, 1944, the Allies achieved a 100-meter gain on the approaches to the Monte Cassino monastery. Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Darling at the 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers Headquarters, received a direct radio report at 0330 hours, confirming the armored threat had been neutralized on the northern sector. On this basis, Darling ordered a rapid forward push, deploying 300 additional troops into newly cleared positions along grid 679 335 degrees Celsius Company was redirected from their original flanking objective to reinforce the East Brecha 450-meter displacement, requiring 2 trucks, 4 Bren gun carriers, and 600 kilograms of munitions in under 45 minutes. By 0415 hours, defensive machine gun nests had been overrun. Allied penetration depth improved from 70 meters to over 170 meters. Within 36 hours, operational plans shifted. The second phase of Operation Diadem, intended for May 15, was accelerated by 24 hours. Major General W. Ladislaw Anders modified the attack order to intensify pressure on the German XIV Panzer Corps. 70 additional Sherman tanks and 400 infantry reinforcements were allocated to support a direct thrust onto the monastery itself. This vital reinforcement, however, came at the expense of postponing a scheduled attack on Piedmont San Germano, diverting 5 tank squadrons and 8 artillery batteries from their original sector. Planning estimates projected 400 Allied casualties for the first 2 days. Actual reports counted 134 killed and wounded, a 67% reduction attributed to the rapid neutralization of armored threats and reallocation of assault teams. Consumption of PIAT bomb projectiles increased by 35% above the initial supply forecast because of sustained close-quarters engagements. By June 4, 1944, the outcome of the Italian campaign was dramatically affected. The abbey at Monte Cassino was fully secured on May 18, 5 days ahead of schedule, enabling the Allies to commence their final push toward Rome without the anticipated delay. The Liri Valley's strategic supply line remained under uninterrupted Allied control until the end of the war, due in part to the break in German armor around Cassino. This accelerated timetable permitted Operation Buffalo, the drive north to Rome, to launch as originally envisioned, rather than risk the delays projected for a prolonged Gustav Line standoff. Lieutenant Colonel Darling was promoted to full colonel on June 10, and 7 officers from the 2nd Battalion and 3rd Carpathian Rifle Division later received the Military Cross for their actions. Changes to infantry anti-tank doctrine were issued to all British and Polish divisional commands by July 1, 1944, mandating expanded close assault training for PIAT crews and the integration of flexible urban tactics beyond formal attack diagrams. The war's timeline in Italy shifted measurably. Allied formations that had been scheduled to reach Rome by late June instead entered the city on June for a 21-day acceleration compared to original SHAEF staff estimates. Over 120 kilometers of central Italian territory, including the Liri and Sacco valleys, came under Allied control by June 10 instead of the expected July timeframe. 17 armored squadrons and 4 entire infantry brigades were freed for redeployment to Operation Dragoon in southern France by August. This transfer of resources directly influenced the swift liberation of Marseille and Lyon, documented by Allied after-action reports linking available units to Monte Cassino's expedited campaign end. German planners anticipated holding the Gustav Line until mid-July. Instead, it fell by late May, fundamentally altering the Axis defensive calculus in southern Europe. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the remainder of 1944. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the PIAT ambushes at Cassino on May 12 had failed or not occurred, the Allied timetable for the Liri Valley breakthrough would have been forced back until at least May 28, approximately 10-14 days beyond the actual May 18 capture of the monastery. This delay is supported by 1998 Sandhurst studies showing that, absent rapid armor neutralization, German Panzer IV units retained the capacity to counterattack along routes 6 and 7, preventing safe infantry advances by British and Polish forces. Historian Richard Holmes's 2001 review estimated an additional 600–900 Allied casualties would have resulted from prolonged open-ground assaults and continued German armored presence grounded in casualty rates from previous failed attacks between January and March 1944. The Liri Valley, according to Italian Army archival supply data, would have remained under German control until mid-June, with knock-on effects for supplies and reserve mobilization. German XIV Panzer Corps would have retained the ability to reinforce Anzio or redeploy to the Adriatic front until at least late May, threatening the continuity of Allied operations south of Rome. Comparing the Monte Cassino anti-tank ambushes to similar Italian campaign engagements, Monte Cassino saw approximately 950 Allied infantry engaged across a 2-square-kilometer urban rubble zone over 72 hours, with 5 confirmed tank kills, a reduction in projected casualties of 67%, and a total shift of strategic initiative enabling the Liri Valley crossing. By contrast, at Anzio, January–February 1944, 1,400 Allied troops operated in 3 square kilometers of open fields over 48 hours, destroying only 2 tanks, with casualties approaching 1,000 and failing to break the German front. At Salerno, September 1943, 2,100 troops, 5 square kilometer beachhead, over 96 hours. 3 tank kills and operational stalemate for 5 days. The British Army Staff College and the Polish Military University both analyze Cassino alongside Anzio due to the contrast in infantry anti-tank synergy and the impact of rubble terrain. In the Italian campaign, 23% of successful Allied advances were directly attributed to infantry anti-tank actions at Cassino, against 9% for comparable events. Professor Burke's 2020 assessment ranked Cassino 4th among 14 decisive Italian operations for the war's outcome, considering casualty minimization, rapid timeline, and resource allocation. The academic assessment is now clear. PIAT-led ambushes at Cassino represented a significant force multiplier and shortened the campaign timetable. Imperial War Museum research supports this with unit logs and oral histories. Opposing views, such as Dr. Gentiles, rely on POW testimony and supply data suggesting fuel and morale issues also contributed. Most historians now conclude that the central scholarly question, whether infantry anti-tank teams could force a strategic decision in urban conditions, has been answered positively. Declassified planning files from SHAEF in 1973 confirmed the primary factor tipping the balance was the unexpected rate of armored losses in the rubble zone. The present consensus is that the May 12–13 actions fundamentally altered the Liri Valley offensive, reducing casualties, accelerating operational tempo, and opening strategic flexibility across the Italian theater. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Sergeant Arthur Grimsby, formerly of the 2nd Battalion, Royal Scots Fusiliers, who destroyed a Panzer IV with a PIAT at Cassino, returned to Liverpool in 1944. After the war, he earned a teaching certificate and spent 36 years as a secondary school teacher. For 2 decades, he helped organize the Cassino Veterans Association, speaking annually at commemorative events and supporting education about the battle. In a 1988 interview with the Imperial War Museum, Grimsby said, "No medal nor mention in dispatches mattered as much as knowing those lads got off that hill alive." He regularly corresponded with 6 veterans from his unit. His taped interviews and diaries are archived at the IWM's Oral History Collection. Grimsby died in 1992 at age 74 in Liverpool. The Polish Soldiers' Memorial at Monte Cassino, completed in 1946, features marble slabs inscribed with the names of 1,072 Polish soldiers who fell during the battle. Its design incorporates red sandstone from southern